fans. Welcome to another edition of the PG Pitt Show brought to you by FanDuel. My name is Stephen Thompson for Pitt Athletics for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, coming to you the morning after Pitt fell 62-65 on the road at Boston College. I was there to see it in person, and it was ugly. Not the way you wanted that game to go, certainly if you're Pitt, and for a number of reasons. Most starkly, and I think this is the only place to start, is how many points Pitt left on the floor in that game. So you're talking about 16 missed layups, 9 for 25 shooting layups, at least according to the stat broadcast. So that's 32 points right there. And then you factor in another 10 points left on the floor, 7 of 17 shooting free throws. And so many of these came either at the very beginning of the game or at the very end of the game, kind of in crunch time. So they had an opportunity to set the tone, jump out to a lead, but then also finish the game with these bunnies, these theoretically these easy shots that are supposed to go down, and they just couldn't cash in any of them, or very few of them. That is the most, I guess, disappointing thing. That's where this loss kind of starts and ends. It's not, I don't know if there's a strategic or schematic thing that, this team can do. It's really got to be a lot of work and practice, I guess, to fix these kinds of things. They created a lot of really open looks. They had opportunities around the basket. They got to the free throw line. They did a lot of things process-wise that I think you have to do if you are a team who is struggling offensively the way that Pitt is, but they just couldn't cash in the opportunities. So that's where this, you can maybe point to some individual moments. Maybe at the end of the game you don't think that certain plays were drawn up well enough, but this is a game that Pitt should have been able to win comfortably, and that's the reality. When you miss 16 layups, when you miss 10 free throws, even if you are only shooting 50% from the free throw line, if you are only shooting 40% instead of or even if they're only shooting 50% on layups instead of 45%, or I guess the 36%. If 9 for 25, times 4. Doing some quick math there, but even if you are only shooting 50% from the free throw line and 40% from on your layups, you still win that game and probably win it pretty comfortably. We're not having this conversation if 2 layups go down, or if a few more free throws find the bottom of the net. But that's the difference between winning and losing right now for this team. Their margin for error is razor thin, and those are just mistakes that you can't afford to have. That is a volume of mistakes that you cannot afford to have and still expect to win. Jeff Capel said it about 4 or 5 times in an abbreviated post-game press conference. Is we can talk all day about what losing DeMarco Minor to a flagrant foul 2 did to this team. You can talk all day about the spark that they had in the second to start the second half, the 10-2 run that they went on, their ability to get back into the game like that. But at the end of the day, you just can't miss 16 layups and 10 free throws and expect to win a game at the power conference level. Really, at any level of basketball, you just can't let that many opportunities slip through your fingers and expect to still come out with a win. And that's again what this felt like. Boston College, playing with some momentum now. They've won 2 games in a row in ACC play, but this is a team coming into the year that was widely expected to be the worst team in the ACC. They'd played like that for most of this year. Pitt had kind of fallen into that territory, right? And this was a game that would kind of determine who was going to own that bottom spot in the ACC. These are 2 teams that no one really had much faith in, hadn't put much on the court. But if you're on the Pitt side of things, this is a game that you felt like you should have or could have won. I think Boston College is ranked 100 spots lower, 103 spots lower, I checked this morning, than the next lowest ACC team, which I think is Georgia Tech. Pitt is in the middle of a 6-game stretch right now. It started on January 10th, and it goes through, I believe, their game against Wake Forest at home next week, where they played 4 teams that were picked 4 of those 6 teams were picked to finish in the bottom half of the ACC standings. And I think as we live and breathe right now, four of those 6 opponents, were had a double digit seed in the ACC standings right now. What I mean by that is there were opportunities to pick up wins here ahead of a much more difficult back half of the schedule in February and March. This game in Boston College, this was one that Pitt needed to have if you were going to try to salvage something from this season, to create some positive momentum, to give people a reason to keep watching. I think it's really tough to keep your players engaged when the losses continue to mount like this. It's even more difficult to keep your fans engaged when the losses keep mounting like this, and you keep losing in such agonizing nature. I talk about the missed layups and everything, but you also lose on a buzzer beating three. If a shot rims out, you go to overtime, maybe things play out differently. But it is just becoming increasingly difficult to see where the wins are going to come from. If you couldn't pull out a win in this spot against a team that, for as poorly as Pitt played, Boston College was not much better, right? Like, this was a 3-point game, and we're talking about how many missed opportunities Pitt had. It is just almost it is really hard to see where they are going to pull out other wins from. And sometimes you watch a game like this where Pitt does play poorly, but again they left a lot of opportunities on the floor, and you start to believe Jeff Capel a little bit when he says, I'm seeing some good things from my team. I am seeing them fight. I am seeing them, make some improvements. I'm seeing individual guys get better at their games. But it all gets overshadowed when you lose the game, right? And any and everything positive is being overshadowed by all of these mounting losses and their inability to close out games. It's easy to forget that in 4 of their 6 ACC games, they have held a lead in the second half, and they only have 1 win to show for it. 10-point lead at halftime in Miami. You play Clemson to, I believe, a 4-point game inside of 5 minutes left, maybe even after the final media timeout. Syracuse, awful start. You battle back to make it a 6-point game with, I believe, just under 6 minutes to go in that game. And then you have this game right here that you just kind of fumble away in the closing minutes. There have been plenty of opportunities for Pitt to pick up wins in ACC play, and they only have 1 to show for it. And that is extremely frustrating if you are obviously a fan, but also if you are a player or a coach who sees a lot of what's going on behind the scenes. And if you see some positive stuff from your team in practice, you see it in spots in the games, and then at the end of the day, your resume says what it does. Those are the things that, it makes it so much harder to sell what this team can be, to sell what this program can be moving forward, when you're not able to take care of business in spots like this against teams that you are maybe theoretically better than. The only compliment I can give Pitt right now is that they have outperformed expectations in a lot of ways, in some ways, in ACC play, really. Being able to play Clemson and Miami as close as they did, hanging with the Syracuse team, the final margin not being as bad as it was. Louisville is really, as Jeff Capel put it, the outlier. That is the only non-competitive ACC game that they have been in this year. And so, on one hand, you want to see some of the encouraging things, but at the end of the day, you're continuing to let these opportunities slip by, and the opportunities for wins down the road become less and less apparent. We'll try to end on a more positive note. Macari Moore jumps in for DeMarco Minor, like I mentioned, picks up a flagrant 2, is ejected only 9 minutes into the game. I believe there were, he only played 9 minutes. I believe there were maybe 8.5 minutes left in the first half. But Macari Moore steps in, and I thought was really excellent, especially for a guy who hadn't really played much at all. I think his season high in minutes was 12, and it was during the non-conference schedule. I think it was maybe against Bucknell, one of those blowouts. But he plays 17 minutes, takes 5 shots, makes 2 of them, scores 5 points. But really the 2 biggest things that I saw from him, 4 assists to only 1 turnover. He clearly has an ability to handle the ball, and has some passing chops that I think I was not aware of, that I did not give him enough credit for. We hadn't really seen it on the court, but he helped the ball not stick, helped move it around, helped the Panthers really get back into the game when things were looking bleak. I believe they were down 7 when he entered the game, and he ended the game as a +7. In terms of plus minus. He also took a charge in the second half in a really key moment to stop a fast break attempt. Gutty play, got a big hand from his teammates. That's the kind of stuff you like to see. Those are winning plays. And so Moore, I think some room to grow. Obviously, he's clearly raw at this point, but it is interesting. It was interesting to hear Jeff Capel. He's been asked about him and Kieran Mullen, who's played a little bit as well. But Capel clearly felt like he needed to see more from Macari in practice before he could trust him in kind of live game action, which makes a lot of sense, right? If you're not seeing a guy perform in practice, it doesn't make sense to just throw him into the fire in a game. But now that you have seen him play in an ACC game, play well, make some winning plays, I think you maybe have to kind of think more about hey, what am I seeing in practice? How does that align with what I'm seeing in games? Which do I value more? And which should earn a player more time on the court? Because I think the process does have to be good, especially with a young guy in practice. Like, you have to show those things behind the scenes before a coach can feel comfortable with you out on the floor in when the bullets are live and everything like that. But Moore definitely, I think, earned some more playing time. I think he earned some more luck. The only kind of hang up is that he plays a pretty stacked position. If you're on a night where DeMarco Minor isn't getting ejected in the first half, just how many minutes there are to go around with Noyes and Drasitis, I think doing some good things, playing some better basketball as of late. But then you've also got Amari Witherspoon, who has been up and down, but giving you some good things so far this year, and then Brandon Cummings and DeMarco Minor, who are kind of pillars on this team right now. So I'm not quite sure where Macari Moore fits into the rotation moving forward, but I think certainly earned himself more than the 4 minutes a game that he had been averaging, and some healthy DNPs that he had been earning to start his college career. There's clearly something there, and I think that's a really encouraging thing. Pitt was able to go about as deep as they have all year. They played 9 guys. Mullen only played 5 minutes. Witherspoon only played 7, didn't play in the second half, but getting 17 minutes from Macari Moore, 27 from Noyes and Drasitis. I think that's an encouraging thing. Pitt, one of the things Pitt was able to do when Moore came in, and especially to start the second half, was play in transition a little bit. It helped him take the lid off the basket. But you can really only do that if you have a certain amount of depth. And so the Panthers maybe have some more with Moore, but you kind of got to see him do it over and over again. And if you're Jeff Capel, you hope that he can show you some things in practice that maybe lead you to believe that this is more real and has some more sticking power than you once thought. That's all I've got for this video. Thank you all for tuning in to the PG Pitt Show, brought to you by FanDuel. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel on PG Pitt so you don't miss a thing as we continue to cover the end of basketball season, get into spring ball and some more transfer additions for Pitt football. But then check out all of our written work at post-gazette.com as well. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.